Corruption concerns you and me. Corruption breeds crime and poverty. Leaders of this great nation, and in God we trust. Do you hear us cry, or will you watch your people die?
Hello and welcome to our program Corruption Watch. I'm your host Juliet Muntale. Now today in the studio we have the Anti-Corruption Commission Director General, Mr. Gilbert Phiri, who will be giving us information on corruption-based issues. Mr. Phiri, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Now before we delve into the program for today, in simple terms, what is corruption?
In simple terms, corruption is abuse of power for private gain. So you have authority, you are a man or woman in authority, and you decide that you are going to benefit privately, but using your office. That is corruption, in simple terms.
Oh, okay. So what is the mandate for the Anti-Corruption Commission?
The mandate or the authority from which the Anti-Corruption Commission derives its power is embedded in the Anti-Corruption Act. It is three-pronged. If you look at our logo behind there, you see the three pillars. The three pillars typify the mandate of the Anti-Corruption Commission. One of the pillars is for prevention. We, as much as possible, are mandated to ensure that we prevent corruption from happening. The second pillar is for education. Our mandate is to educate the public against the ills of corruption. The third pillar is invoked when the two pillars fail. Prevention fails, education fails, then we move into investigation and prosecution. So this only happens if we fail to do that. So, in short, prevention, education, investigation, and prosecution. Three-pronged mandate of the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes. So now, Mr. Phiri, how has the Anti-Corruption Commission evolved over the years in regards to the fight against corruption in the country?
Well, the Anti-Corruption Commission is now resurgent. We mean business when we talk about fighting corruption. Yes, the Anti-Corruption Commission was birthed in the early 80s. I think initially it was a department, a government department within the Ministry of Home Affairs. And then from then on, it has moved on to be an independent institution with the three-pronged mandate I've just talked about. The Act itself envisages that the Anti-Corruption Commission is an independent institution. So over the years, the Anti-Corruption Commission has taken on the position of being an independent institution mandated to fight corruption. We can safely say that we have taken our position. I'm sure you've been able to notice. Yes. With regard to ensuring that we are fulfilling the mandate, we are involved extensively in prevention work. We are now involved in sitting on procurement committees, not as participants involved in the selection process, but you see that eye there on top. Yes. We are watching you. So we are involved in monitoring and ensuring that the participants are adhering to the procurement process. We are involved heavily in education, sensitizing the public, but also currently, in fact, as I sit here, we are involved in an exercise that is considering the curriculum, education curriculum, ensuring that we infuse corruption themes in our curriculum, mainstream corruption themes in our education sector, so that we ensure that our children and the students are growing up with values that are acceptable in society, values that prevent the occurrence of this scourge. When it comes to our mandate with regard to investigation and prosecution, we are deeply into that. We have ensured that we have a trained cadre of investigators, and the cases that are investigated, we make sure that they are watertight. When we are calling someone and we are taking them to court, we are sure we have done our work. So over the years, yes, I think that we have come to be an outfit that should be reckoned with. But that is an outfit that is serving the Zambian people, ensuring that the meager resources that the country has are put to good use. And if we can, we want people to fear to touch public resources, your resources and my resources. And we want this to be pronounced, that you cannot become a multi-millionaire serving in public service. If you decide you are going to be a public servant, that does not mean you are going to be poor. You'll be comfortably well looked after, but you are not going to use public resources to enrich yourself. The Anti-Corruption Commission, I'll keep referring to that eye, is watching you.
Okay. So great mandate you have there, Mr. Piri. Now there's an old adage that says prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
In brief, what strategies is the Commission making under the prevention function to actualize the adage?
Yes, the key one under the prevention mandate is we have formed over 140 integrity committees at places of work. Now, I'm hoping that ZANISA has an integrity committee. That integrity committee is the one that we interface with as the Anti-Corruption Commission. First of all, we train the committees, and then those committees report back to the Anti-Corruption Commission every quarter on the activities they've undertaken. We expect that those committees work in these institutions to ensure that some of the policies that they're expected to come up with, for example, whistleblower policies, gift policies, ethics, are being adhered to. They report back to us and we monitor, we appraise, and we offer training to these integrity committees. So one of the interventions is the same one, integrity committees. I said we've created over 140, but also we are involved in selection committees countrywide. Whenever there are selection processes, like most recently, we're involved in the recruitment exercise for the teachers and health workers. Like I also said, we ensure that we play a watchdog role during procurement, especially big ticket procurements, where a lot of government funds will be expended. So road, for example, fertilizer, among others. So we also do undertake corruption risk assessments where we see that there are risks that are inherent in certain exercises, and we do advise. Also vulnerability assessments. You know, part of the mandate of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the powers reposed in the Director General is to be able to instruct and direct government institutions to improve their processes when we see that those processes are prone to corruption. That mandate and the power is reposed in the Director General on behalf of the Zambian people and the institution to be able to direct that we see some inclination there or proclivity or gaps that could fan corruption. So improve in this manner. And the law is such that they are mandated or they are obliged to correct the situation as directed by the Anti-Corruption Commission, so that we prevent corruption from taking place. Now, if the head of that institution decides to ignore the directive from the Anti-Corruption Commission, it means they've committed an offense. And you know the sanctions that follow. In fact, it's in the law. That head of that institution can be removed, or the Anti-Corruption Commission can prefer criminal charges against that institution. the head of that institution. So it's a wide mandate that we enjoy under the prevention mandate.
So now, Director General, coming to the core discussion for today, you will be holding the private sector symposium on corruption prevention. What is this all about?
Yes, this is very, very, very important. The theme, first of all, is preventing corruption through private sector participation. Now, why the private sector? You see, we have an equation in Zambia. We have the public sector on the one hand. Then we have the private sector on the other hand. We have concentrated our efforts on the public sector. We have over 140 integrity committees. When it comes to the private sector, we only have 2 integrity committees, only 2 entities that have bothered to form. So what the private sector is the other part of the equation, in this corruption equation. If I may ask a rhetorical question, who bribes these public officials? Who gives them bribes? Who pollutes this procurement process? More often than not, it's the entities from the private sector. The private sector are the ones that bid for this big ticket procurement, these tenders that government floats, involving millions of United States dollars. It's a private sector. The private sector, in as far as the endeavors of the Anti-Corruption Commission are concerned, is uninvolved, is unregulated. I'll give you an example. In certain jurisdictions like Malaysia, you cannot do business with government if you do not have certain policies in place. For example, gift policy, whistleblower policy, if you do not have an ethics code, if you do not have a policy addressing bribery. But here in Zambia, you can form a fly-by-night company today, and tomorrow you bid, and you are paid money which you externalize and you flee the country. There are cases that we are handling right now, that we are dealing with. Some of them are in public domain. So we want to bring the public sector to the table. And hopefully, out of this interaction, the symposium, which we hope will be an annual event, we hope to come up with resolutions that can be actionable going forward, that obliges the public sector, the private sector, to come up with measures to curb corruption. What we want to do is reduce corruption in the private sector. But also, this is why we are going to have in attendance the Secretary to the Cabinet. We are hoping that the Head of State will grace the occasion. We want to see how the private sector, on its own, with the facilitation of Anti-Corruption Commission, can come up with measures that reduce and curb corruption. Because we see that one of the tipping points is when it comes to procurement of services. This is where we see that we have difficulties. We hope that this gathering will be a turning point in the fight against corruption.
Okay,
Indeed.
so I'm interested. I know you've talked about the private sector, but in detail, why is the private sector a concern for the Anti-Corruption Commission?
It's a serious concern because, you see, the private sector provides multifaceted services to the public, ranging from banking, construction, general services, insurance, and they procure government services through tenders. They are some of the largest employers in the country. So we think that if embedded within the private sector are ethical codes that call on the employees of these entities to a higher ethical standards, the country will change. In fact, the manner in which we do business will change because there will be saving. You see, corruption is costly. Because what happens is if there's a demand of a bribe and the company is required to pay a bribe, that cost is passed on to the consumers. What then that means is that the cost when you go to the shop to buy something or to get a service, that bribe is factored in. So you are paying more because of a few selfish individuals. And the key drivers is the private sector. These are the key drivers. So if we address this problem here, there's no one who's going to be paying a bribe to the public service and inflating pricing. We therefore think, and we have no doubt whatsoever, that the cost of doing business will reduce. In the end, it's the poor Zambians that are going to benefit. Because you see, the poor have no negotiating ability when it comes to corruption. They are poor, they do not have the money. But if we address the drivers of corruption, we reduce the cost of doing business, the cascade effect on the common man in the street, the proverbial common man in the street, is that he's better off. Now, if we do not address the drivers of corruption, especially we do not handle the private sector, we are killing the nation. So we think that we are at that stage as a nation where time has come to interact, and the private sector itself is going to generate propositions that will ensure that corruption is reduced and the cost of doing business is reduced. It's also good for the private sector and ultimately good for the government. Yeah.
Great works you're doing.
Indeed.
Now, like any other commission, organization, institution, they have their own challenges.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges of the commission that the commission is facing?
Oh, we have a galore of challenges as a commission. Of course, like every institution that is a public institution, we could be better resourced because we have a wide mandate. We are present in 9 provinces and 2 districts. We've now received Treasury authority to expand to 10 provinces to include Muchinga because it's a new province, and also open 12 districts. So we are now going to be in 14 districts, but remember there are 116 districts. So the commission needs to expand. In expanding the commission, we need to grow our teams, our investigators, team of investigators, team of our prosecutors. It's a cost. What it means is that we need to be better resourced.
Yes.
Thankfully, there's a will to fight corruption now. And we are incrementally, we've seen an improvement in the financing arrangement and inflows into the commission. It could still be better. So that's one big challenge. We have another challenge, of course. We need to entrench the independence of the commission. So we have to look at our law, the Anti-Corruption Act. So we're in the process of improving it, and it will be sent over to the Minister of Justice so that then amendments can be effected that entrench its independence. So for example, when there are certain cases that you need to seek authority, we call it consent from the Director of Public Prosecution. So we feel that entails that the commission is not independent, because someone has to look at your work and say whether you can go ahead or not go ahead. We hope that with the amendments that we envisage, that function can be reposed within the Anti-Corruption Commission, or there can be a time period given to the Director of Public Prosecutions within which to render consent, so that then we can execute the work in good time. But also, when it comes to the final, you see, after a matter is investigated, we have to take it to court to be prosecuted. But timely delivery of justice is also dependent on the judiciary. Thankfully, there's creation now of the Economic and Financial Crimes Court, which is dubbed a fast-track court. We hope with the passage of time, this court is going to live up to expectations that it's a fast-track court, meaning quick dispensation of justice. When the Anti-Corruption Commission or the DEC take their cases there to the court, we are hoping that we are going to see quick delivery of judgments, either in acquittal or in condemnation, whichever the case. But the Zambian people there are eager to see quick dispensation of justice. So that's one of the challenges. But we know that all these challenges embedded within this problem is the resource issue. The judiciary, as the anti-corruption is, are under-resourced. So you see, you need more magistrates, you need more courtrooms, you need magistrates that are dedicated to handling matters that are coming within the docket of fast track. So to name a few, those are the challenges, but the one that preponderates, the prime one, the major one, is the resource issue. And obviously, because the public resource envelope is limited. So we are trying to do everything that we are trying to do within this limited basket of resources.
Well, Director General, great and insightful information there. So now, lastly, on the 24th of October, Zambia will be celebrating 58 years of independence under the theme Zambia at 58, promoting inclusiveness towards a sustainable social and economic recovery. How does the Anti-Corruption Commission interpret this theme?
Yes, our interpretation is multifaceted, but I'll just talk about one. You see, we have to ensure that we live in a just and fair society. We have to ensure that the resources of this nation are fairly distributed, wisely used, and that we do not have people or a group of people that are arrogating to themselves these resources and gaining advantage at the expense of Zambians. As a watchdog institution, watchdog, that eye there, eagle's eye, watching, we want to ensure that we come down heavily on any individual or groups of individuals that think they can privatize public resources for their own good. I'll borrow the words of the late President Levi Mwanawasa, that they get public resources and put in their filthy pockets. We are not going to allow that as the Anti-Corruption Commission. We are going to come down very hard on these individuals. Now, it does not matter who they are, whether they are from opposition, they're from the ruling party, anyone that thinks they can put their filthy hands and put public resources in their filthy pockets, as President Mwanawasa put it, in his will. We are not going to allow that. I want to make this one very, very clear. That's our interpretation of that theme. The Zambia's public resources are for the Zambian people. Anyone who thinks he's wise enough to privatize these resources, for lack of a better word, arrogate them for private use, using the advantage of their office, whether they've done it in the past, or they are presently doing it, or they plan to do it in the future. We are watching you. And you know, we will act. We relish acting. We are excited to act when we get reports of corruption. The reason is because we don't choose who to act on. You are fair game if you are going to indulge in corruption. You are the one we want. We want you. It doesn't matter your position. It doesn't matter who you are in opposition, the ruling party. We really don't care. We have a mandate, three-pronged mandate. Prosecuting you, hopefully, going to jail is part of fulfillment of our mandate. We are hoping that the message has been rammed home that it does not pay to indulge in corruption. We are hoping that the holders of office presently are not indulging in corruption. We are hoping. Because no matter how much it is hidden, it will come out. And when it comes out, the Anti-Corruption Commission will discharge its mandate. Yes, that's my interpretation.
Director General, thank you for once again for that insightful and great information. We've come to the end of Corruption Watch. Join us next time for another edition of Corruption Watch. My name is Juliet Mtele saying bye-bye and God bless.
Corruption concerns you and me. Corruption breeds crime and poverty. Leaders of this great nation, and in God we trust. Do you hear us cry, or will you watch your people die?